back to Houston Real Estate Radio. Today we are taking a little bit different focus. You know, we're still talking about housing. We always talk about housing, but we're talking about how the White House will impact your house. We know that this is an election year, presidential election year, and so we're talking about the difference between the candidates. I want to focus a little bit more on this segment. I want to talk a little bit about Ted Cruz, because I know a lot of you guys listening really were rooting for Ted Cruz, and so I want to talk a little bit about Ted Cruz. I'm a big Ted Cruz fan myself, and so I want to talk a little bit about how his campaign could have gone a little bit better for the run for the White House. If you've got a real estate question, you can always call us 844-788-9444. That number again is 844-788-9444. And of course, you can always find us online at HoustonRealEstateRadio.com. So we're starting back up again here with Hank Moore. If you watch the video, you can see the display of all these great books that he's written, and there's so many more that aren't even here out on the table. He's written a lot of wonderful books on business, on icons, legendary icons, the Houston icons, which we're doing a different show on, not today, but different show, different day. But I want to talk a little bit with you about Ted Cruz, because a lot of people are narrow-minded in Houston. I mean, they love Ted Cruz. They support him 100%. And so I want to give them the big picture view. What happened?
He didn't have enough name recognition. I mean, it all comes down to that. That's not just in politics, but in business, in the entertainment world. There's sometimes people will run for office, and that's what I think he did to build cachet for next time,
right,
and or probably the time after.
Yeah. So he's got a future for sure. Big
future. You know, we've got 5 generations. We have 6 generations in the population right now, and 5 of them are in the workforce. A lot of my books tend to be written for the 2 youngest generations, because the reason we review history is not to live in the past, but to learn from it. Okay. And what I've known, having known other presidents of the United States and CEOs and whatnot, is they are in the longevity business. Mm-hmm. And I think that Ted Cruz, I've never met him. I mean, I know he's, from Sugar Land, and a lot of people know him and like him. He's got a great future, and I don't think I just think what he does needs to build and build and build. And if I were advising him, I would say get really active again in the Senate and build for that future. Build more of a career for yourself in the Senate. Problem, a lot of times, and Barack Obama was the exception, is first-time senators generally don't get elected president. Mm-hmm. Obama was the exception.
Yeah, that's a tough run for president. That's a tough run because, like you said, if you're a senator in Texas, you got to get it out across the nation, and you can't always buy name recognition. That's a hard sell. It's been done, but it's hard to do. You really have to know the right people and be able to get the word out the right way.
Well, in business, the same thing in politics. You have what's called inside CEOs and outside CEOs. That's what I call them. And a lot of times in state and local government, the people who are going to be the most successful are what I call outside CEOs. I would put Ted Cruz in that category, definitely, where he's got the charisma and the people skills that some of the other candidates didn't have.
Don't you think that just looking at who we are kind of in the process of cultivating as our next generation of legislative leaders, do you agree with the fact that people are wanting to have leaders in politics who have great business experience? I just feel like a lot of people are really tired of career politicians who've never owned businesses, who've never been out there and worked hard outside of politics to build anything, and they have a very narrow-minded focus on politics. And I think that the people that elect them want a more rounded candidate, someone who's good in business, who's proven effective leadership in other arenas, and then can cross-pollinate that with politics.
but who also has the community and ethical savvy and background. One of the biggest problems with business, not to get on, since I am an internationally known authority on that, biggest problem with business is people want to carbon copy what someone else did. Yeah. And as a result, it doesn't work
as well as
that's right.
It doesn't work very well.
Same thing with politicians and entertainers, right? Yeah. When I first started, I had a series of mentors. It's just my mentors were bigger name people, Winston Churchill, Eleanor Roosevelt, and people like that. But one of the first pieces of advice I was ever given was you can't go through life as a carbon copy of someone else. And the art and the skill with which you create your persona is what's going to make you happen. Same thing for organizations, whether they be small businesses, large corporation, public sector entities. Public sector entities, there's so many of them, and it's very important for small business people to get on boards and commissions and become active in their community. Of course, that's all coming up in my next book, Nonprofit Legends. But it's very important to cultivate those skills to talk about business in other circles. And so with Ted Cruz, as he goes back to the Senate, same thing with Marco Rubio. Whatever they do, same thing with Bernie Sanders for that matter, is the art and skill with which they go back to the Senate and take care of their constituents is going to give them the cachet for whatever happens in the past. I happen to work for somebody who was a real take care of the constituent kind of a politician. His name was Lyndon Baines Johnson. And LBJ was not the most charismatic person. When he ran for president in 1960 at an open convention, the person with the charisma beat him. Then he went to work for the person with charisma who beat him. Then he succeeded that person as president. So there's no substitute for taking care of your constituents. And if you do it in such a visible way, the people nationally will pay more attention to you.
And they will promote and push you up as well.
And that's what happened with Johnson, and that's what happened with other people. But every time someone comes in who's not completely prepared for the job, can we say Jimmy Carter? He did a lot of great things. He's probably done more as an ex-president than he did as president because he simply didn't have the toolkit at that time.
Do you think that Donald Trump has the tools to be president?
No, but...
you didn't think about it.
No. But again, I don't get involved with, sometimes there are different business strategies, and the my way or the highway strategy in business is so well. No, it's all about win, 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 and finding ways of helping people to win. So I think the secret, no matter who's elected, is that local business people understand the importance of becoming more visible. In your case, when you serve on a professional board, that is a calling that makes you more valuable to your clients, which makes your company more valuable to the community, which makes the community more valuable. And I think one of the things that I frequently do when I'm doing studies of businesses, I've done probably 500 performance reviews of companies, from little bitty companies to companies going public on Wall Street or whatever. One of the things that I look at is the cachet of those executives, what they're doing to bring those heir apparents along. And you can't just throw a young person in and say, hi, just go out and be an executive, or follow the wrong advice by those older people. Every management team needs to have each generation represented. And if the goal, as I was originally told, you've got to stop thinking like a disc jockey. You've got to be starting to think like a visionary.
Right.
And at age 10, I didn't know what visionary was, but I was told that I needed to learn to grow into the role. And that's the same thing I say for politicians. There are multiple generations. And if you're going to start using Generation Y and Z as your next electorate, then you be that older but wiser mentor for them. And that's what I recommend for Cruz and some of the other people is they, in other words, if they could grab some of that mentoring savvy that Bernie Sanders evoked with a younger generation, they're going to make it long term.
I think one of the hardest things for people who are in the public eye today is to figure out the charisma part of it, because this is the first time. I mean, we've had presidents on TV for a long time, but now it's not just being a president. You have to entertain, you have to sell, you have to motivate. I mean, there are a lot of things that come with that, building your image.
And you build your constituencies in the community. One of the things that I liked about George H.W. Bush, he was not the most charismatic, but he was good at taking care of business and building constituencies. And having been in those first meetings, about 1,000 points of light, it was all about how we're going to build communities that last. That's what I wrote about in Houston Legends. That's what I wrote about in the other books, is the people, the power brokers didn't just sit around talking about looting and plundering and robbing the population to get filthy rich. Money was rarely ever part of the discussion. Right. In the mind of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and those people who are in my current book, it was always about the community give back, the making a difference, and the lasting effect. It was never about the money.
Right. It's rarely about the money.
No.
When you have a lot of it, it seems like it must have been at some point, but it's rarely about the money.
Right.
All right. We'll be right back with more here on Houston Real Estate Radio. We've been talking with the Houston legend, Hank Moore. He wrote the book, Houston Legends, which we're going to talk about in a different show. And you can find the videos of today's show at HoustonRealEstateRadio.com. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Imagine you and your family return from a tropical vacation to find that one of your pipes burst, flooding your entire house. Are you fully covered? Will you only receive $100 for your TV that cost you $2,000 just 2 years ago? Will your insurance company pay for you to live in a hotel while your home is being repaired? What if on that same trip you lose your wedding ring? Will your home insurance coverage replace that as well? All insurance policies are not created equal. If you don't know the answer to these questions, you're not alone. Most people don't understand the gaps in their coverage until it's too late. Call Goosehead Insurance today and let one of our agents review your current policy to ensure that you are fully covered. At Goosehead Insurance, we understand the power of choice. Instead of working for a single insurance company, our agents have access to over 20 A-rated carriers. This allows us to craft a policy to fit your particular lifestyle, budget, and needs. It also enables us to reshop your policy in the future, if necessary, saving you time and money. No need to look for another agent. At Goosehead, we've got you covered. Our agents will walk you through each policy decision so that you have the coverage you need. If that's not reason enough, talk to one of our happy clients. Our client satisfaction scores are 3 times the industry average. To experience the Goosehead Insurance difference, visit us online at goosehead.com or call us at 800-474-1377.